So you guys have already heard a lot about Olivia. Olivia started this process with the loss of her mother, and that got her very interested in writing as a creative form of expression. Olivia is a youth ambassador here at Learning Through Loss. She's written 2 books, which is a lot for someone at the age of 17, never mind at any age. And we're just really excited to have you here today to share a little bit more about your process with grief, your writing, and really what the spirit of this event is how can we amplify our voices through the darkness into the light, and how can we use creative tools to be advocates and recognize the youth voice as being really important. Just wanted to say that it means a lot that you're here today to share a little bit about your story.
I'm happy to.
So that's where I'm going to start.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the beginnings of your journey with grief and what got you on this path?
Yes. So like when I was 10, my mom was first like diagnosed with breast cancer. And like at the time, like my brother and I were pretty young. So like she was trying not to like tell us too much about like it, because like when you're young and like hearing about something you don't really know too much about can be really scary. And like, so I just remember like one of her friends like dropped off flowers by the door, and it said like it had a card, and I was there with my friend at home, and I was probably like grade 5 or something, and the card was like I wish you well, or like get better, like, or something like that. And I was like so confused because it also said like cancer, and I was like never heard of that word before, like being so young. So then I was like, my friend kind of explained to me like what it was. Probably not the best coming from a grade 5 year old kid, but I didn't want to like go to my mom and talk about it because I was just like, I don't know like what this is. So I just kind of kept it. But so that's kind of like how it started. But then my mom went on like medication and chemo, and like she lost her hair for the first time. And like my brother and I, it was a bit of a shock at first, like because we're like, oh, I don't know what we're gonna think of her, like I don't know. Mm-hmm. But my mom always like looked at herself in the mirror and like called herself ugly with having no hair. And I was like, hair doesn't make you like beautiful, not. It's like who you are. And like, so that's kind of, I always kind of keep that as like, it's important, like how you are on the inside is like more important than what you are on the outside, because you can't really judge someone based on their like outside, you know? So then a couple years later, my mom got diagnosed with cancer again, which because it moved to her spine and rib cage, and then it advanced really quickly. So then it went into her brain fluid, and at that point it was like it's stage 4, so you only have like 2 months left at that point. And I just remember like it was in November, and my brother and I, we came home from school, and my mom was there like on the phone call, and she was crying. I was like, this felt like something's not like right. And so she was like, I only have 2 months left to live. And I was like, I can't even take that in. Like, that's just a lot to even take in. And so like my brother he's quite like young at the time. So like he kind of took it out as like yelling and like crying and stuff. And I just kind of like took it in and just kind of stayed there. And it just shows like the different ways that people kind of process things. And like, and at that point, I didn't think like that was starting to grieve. Like I was starting to grieve at that point. But I realize now that kind of is because I was starting to prepare for what would life be like without her, even though that's like such an unimaginable thing. Like I couldn't even think that because like she's my best friend, like we're so close. So it was really hard to like hear that. But yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And this is something you talk about in your book too, how, there's this strangeness about having the person that you're grieving their loss physically present in front of you.
Yeah.
And this really gets at how diverse our experience with grief can look. It doesn't just happen, the moment that someone passes away, right? And I'm curious, speaking of, the way that you've processed grief, and you mentioned it being a bit more internal for you versus your brother. I think that it's really unique that, you took this and you funneled it into a book. And I'm wondering where that thought process came from for you. What was the motivation for you in thinking, I want to get this published?
The thing is, when my mom first I got the news that she died, even though I knew I had 2 months left with her, it's a completely different feeling when you actually realize that she's gone. Because before, in those 2 months, I could still go to give her a hug or just sit in the hospital room. I would sit in the hospital room with her all day long, and I didn't need to look at anything or do anything. I could just literally sit there and just be in her presence and just look around and just kind of be with her, because that's what I needed to do. And I would just kind of massage her hand and just talk to her and while she would sleep and stuff. And that kind of helped me. But what inspired me to do the book is losing my mom at 14. I felt super alone and isolated because I was so young losing my mom, and we don't get taught being what it's like to lose someone so young. We don't get taught how that affects us or how to deal with something that hard. So I knew I was okay, if I feel alone and the only young person who lost a parent in this world, I'm sure there must be someone else who's also feeling the same way as me. And I literally couldn't find, I looked through books or anything, articles about talking about a teenager's perspective on losing someone, but it was all adults talking about I lost this person when I was young, but it's not the same as actually as you are feeling it, all these things. So that inspired me to put my feelings and things onto paper, so in hoping that someone else my age can read it and then feel not so alone, because knowing that there's someone else who's also going through the same thing and those feelings, and that you don't need to be alone, even though it is a lonely thing, I guess.
That makes so much sense. And I love how much honor there is in that, just seeing what's missing out there in the world and filling that gap. It sounds like you gave yourself the gift you wish you'd had.
Yeah. And also I was also scared to forget my mom.
Yeah.
And all of the memories that we have, because I was a whole lifetime without her, it's kind of impossible to think about, and I don't want to forget her. So I was also if I can write down some of my favorite stories with her, or little moments that make me happy when I bonded with her, I can kind of keep that in a physical thing all the time, so I can always go back to that and oh, these are her favorite foods, or these are the things. So kind of helps me to kind of keep her here with me.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, and it's a practice for you and for others. And in putting this book out into the world, you're also getting so much media attention, right? You've spoken to CTV, CBC, you've had many interviews in the past, and it's propelled you into the spotlight as a youth advocate. And I'm wondering what that process has been like for you, because this is such a personal, vulnerable topic. What is it like being someone who's shared their voice so publicly about something so personal?
It's definitely, sometimes it's a lot, because it's kind of I'm like re-rubbing the wounds like kind of over and over again, because I'm always like having to talk about kind of like the same kind of things. But it also makes me feel good that like other people can kind of relate to what I'm saying, and like knowing that I'm like also helping others, but it's also helping myself to like not kind of keep everything locked as well, because I know myself, I'm a person who does kind of lock things and keep it there. So like the writing kind of definitely helped me to like put it somewhere, because I don't really like to cry in front of people or anything. So that gave me a place to where I could put those emotions, because otherwise I would just kind of keep it there and it would come out eventually, maybe not in the right way. So
this is your way of taking control of how things come out.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to do this, I want to own it my way, and it's going to be hard, and I want to be able to share this story and be really real with it.
Yeah.
That means so much. And I know that grief can carry a big stigma as well. So talking about this publicly, especially for youth, like you've mentioned, there's no book out there that exists like the one that you have. So what has your experience been like encountering perspectives on grief when you share? Like, what has been the response to your book? To what are people saying?
One thing I found is like a few like teenagers like reached out to me on Instagram and was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I read your book and like I saw you like speaking about it, and I just want to say like thank you for making me feel like not alone. And that's literally the goal of why I wanted to put it out there. Like, it was super hard writing it, because I had to, in order for me to write it, I had to go back into the feelings. And it was really hard. Like, I'd feel everything as I was writing it. But I knew that it would be helpful. And I'm just glad that like it is helping others as well, which is what I wanted to do.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
To be able to sit in that place where you can see the impact.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know what you think that you would want other people to do differently in relating to your grief. Like, what are things that, you've been through this, that you wish teachers, students, peers, parents, community, how do you wish that they would respond to your grief and like everything that you've been sharing?
Well, like I took a week off school, like when my mom first died, and like the teachers from the school kept texting me that whole week. They're like, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? I'm like, I'm gonna take how much time I need before I come back. Like, it doesn't really work that way. And then when I came back, I was kind of expecting maybe some support from like a counselor or a teacher, kind of be more understanding. But the teacher was like, okay, here's a pile of work that you missed and you should do it. And I was like, okay, yeah, no. But so like everyone kind of treats you a bit like an alien, I felt like. It's kind of like I'm just kind of floating around the school, and like everyone's kind of avoiding me. For what reason, I don't know. But I think it's because like people are just afraid to maybe say the wrong thing, or like they don't know how to support you or what to say, because it is, again, grief is a thing that doesn't get talked about. So therefore, to everyone around you, it's like a scary thing, which that's what it felt like.
So what do you wish that people had said?
Just like being understanding, like, I don't know, like just being like Olivia, I know you lost your mom, like that's probably like, that is very hard for you or something. So just like feel free to take the time you need, and like you don't need to worry about like coming back to school right now and having all this stuff to do. Like, you can just kind of focus on yourself, and we're here to support you if you need, but not like forcing like anything, or I don't know, just more understanding of it also, because especially when it's something so fresh too, you don't really want to just talk about it, because it's like you don't know you don't even know what you're feeling. It's like a bunch of things. And like, I just remember like, it felt like I was not even in this world. Like, it's like I'm living in this like weird state of, I don't know, like, so it's super hard to know like how to be supported sometimes at that beginning. But if people were more understanding and like there was bigger support around that, like, I think that would be more beneficial.
Well, Helen, that makes so much sense. And it's funny how sometimes that can be so simple and yet so scary for some people to do, right? Like just sitting in like, hey, I'm here if you need to talk, but also creating that space for someone else to decide how they may want to be supported as they figure it out. Because it's, you know, it's an ongoing process.
And also like with my friends, I had like a bunch of good friends, and then the second I got back after I lost my mom, they all stopped talking to me. Like they just ignored me in the hallway, and I was like, what did I do? Like I didn't do anything. Like why do you hate me for something that, like, I can't control? So it's just very isolating that people like can just ignore you for that. And it was very hurtful, because it was like, how, like, that's not supportive. Like I wish like everyone in the world could be more like supporting and like loving of everyone. I don't know, because it's just, why be hateful for like no reason? I don't know.
It's like at the time when you need support the most. Ironic that it's also the hardest for people to reach out. I'm curious to know what makes you feel like, even today, because grief is a process, what makes you feel like lit up, and what helps you cope the most with your emotions? It gets you excited.
Well, I guess kind of, well, now I know, like, I have a strong sense of, like, I know my mom's kind of with me, because me and her were super, super close. And so having that, like, special bond that maybe some people don't even get in a lifetime with their moms is, like, what we had. And I'm just, like, super grateful that I got to have that, even in a short time. Like, I was never, like, arguing with her or anything. Like, it was just, like, the best ever. And, like, it's just, I always kind of keep that with me, is like, she is with me, and that's what gives me my like confidence and my strength, is her. And like, she used to tell me, like, me and my brother gave her strength to like go through chemo and like go through everything that she went through. And now, like, I say that she's my strength, and that's what like keeps me going every single day. It's like, I know that she's there, and she would want me to be joyful, not kind of sit in that like state of sadness. But so like not staying there.
I think that speaks a lot to how you've transformed your grief too, into ways that you feel now stronger as a person. And I can see how much gratitude and appreciation you have for the relationship that you and your mom had together. It's really meaningful. I know we've got to wrap up, but I'm curious to know before we do, and then we're gonna have a quick Q&A. As you continue to share your story, engage with youth, and do things like this, what's an impact that you hope that you have? What message do you want to leave people with?
It's a tricky question.
So okay to not know.
I guess like I want like everyone to know that like you don't need to feel, even though when you do feel alone, and like you, of course, in times you will feel alone, and like everyone hates you, and like you're the worst, and you don't know why. It's not anything to do with you, or like you don't need to hate yourself because of that. It's just like people don't know how to like support you. And so knowing that there are like resources to help you, and like, yeah, so like just not, you don't have to feel alone, because there are people there to support you, and like even when you do feel alone, I guess.
Which I feel like is the message of the book at the end of the day. Yeah. It's out there screaming, hello, you're not alone. I've experienced something that looks like you might be going through. Thank you guys for making time for this. This is like so official press release-esque, but we did it. We did it. Thank you, especially Olivia, for making time for this.